Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and tie master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And welcome back, Anne-Marie. After 2 weeks, I've been missing you. I've missed you a lot.
I missed you too, but I was having fun.
You were having great fun here in the States. That's a wonderful thing. You were just telling us before we got started, you had a great holiday. So
I did.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good when you get away like that too. And you got to see family. You hadn't seen, how long had it been since you last saw them?
Well, I saw some of them last year.
Oh, you did? Okay.
They came to Mum's funeral, but my cousin who flew, she's from Canada, but she's living in New York. Haven't seen her for about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So that was good to catch up.
That's really good. Well, welcome back. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
And we have a guest today who absolutely fits the bill in terms of who we often tend to have on the show. Because, I mean, you know as well as I do that what the pattern is, right? We get people on the show who've been through, crazy traumas or tragedies or whatever. And then they come through the other side and they learn from it and they get stuff they want to share with others. And that's how they end up on, things like our podcast here.
Yes.
But this guest today, he's been into places that most of the people who've been on the show can't even imagine.
Oh, really?
We're talking about levels of trauma that many of us have never even fathomed. And when you see the smile on his face that we're seeing today, I think to myself, damn, this is one hell of a story. So I'm going to let him tell the story.
I was going to say, this sounds a good story.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good one. So his name is Tywin Kalandyk. And Tywin, well, first of all, you have a great first name. I love your first name. But you came from like the worst possible start. And today you're this happy, grinning guy. How the heck did you do that?
It's funny. It's funny hearing you even describe it that way, because I just don't look at it that way. I don't look at it that way at all, because for a second I'm like, who is he talking about? But you know what? And I think this is one of the beautiful things about our stories. And I mean, we all have a story. And mine's probably a little bit different than a lot of people's, but I think everything's all about perspective. So first of all, thank you guys for having me. Excited to be on here. And okay, now I totally forgot the question. Tell me the question.
Well, the question was, tell us about the background. Tell us. I mean, I basically is terrified of listeners. We gotta tell them what it is.
All right, let's go. So, born, I was actually, my mom, my biological mom had a big time drug problem. Mm-hmm. And she was born, well, I was born during the crack era. So I was born in Detroit. And that's when the crack epidemic was pretty big. So I was born a drug and alcohol addicted baby. And I don't know if anybody knows anything about that, but I was born premature, way, way, way before I was supposed to be born. And the doctors pretty much said that there's two possible outcomes. One, I wouldn't make it till I was 1. I would never make it to C1. Or the second outcome was, if I did live, I would be slow. I would have issues. I don't know what the technical word is. But just mental problems, like serious mental problems. And that's actually how I got my name. So I was actually adopted at a pretty young age. I was very lucky. And my mom, her favorite baseball player was Ty Cobb. So that's where the Ty part came from. And I spent the first year of my life in Shands Medical Hospital. And she said when she first seen me, she knew I would be a winner. So she named me Tywin. Oh. That's where the name came from. But so the first year of my life, I spent it literally every single day in a hospital. I can remember pretty vividly. It's kind of crazy. I remember because not just the first year, but then even after that, we'd take visits back to the hospital, and I knew all the doctors and the nurses. And I remember going to like the gift shop, and I would always get excited, like, man, can I get something from the gift shop? So first several years I spent in a hospital, but the first year I didn't leave the hospital.
And I know a little bit about baseball history. Ty Cobb, of course, is one of the very older baseball players and was a real hard-nosed player. I mean, really, really rough, hard-nosed. I mean, he didn't take crap for anybody. And I guess in that sense, it's kind of appropriate you got his name, because you had to be hard-nosed just to survive. It was through all that.
it was, for a long time, I didn't always have the same perspective I had. So let me be very, very clear. Didn't always have this same perspective. I didn't always have the same thought process. But, over the years of working on myself and just really kind of exploring different things and getting a better understanding, I really came to find out it was like a superpower. It really was. It was a superpower. So I'm sure there's probably people listening to this and you went through your own, trauma, or you went through your own problems, and there's two sides of everything. Everything has two sides. So you can either look at we'll call it just the negative side of it, or you can look at the positive side. But there's a positive and a negative side to everything. And I know sometimes it's hard to understand that. It's hard to find that, but I can promise you it's there if you're willing to. Sometimes you got to take yourself out of the situation and look at it from a different perspective. And it took me a long time to do that, especially in terms of my biological mom. I don't think it was until I actually had my own kids when I started realizing, like, oh, this whole parenting thing, this is interesting. And, you have kids and you're just doing the best that you know how to do. And being the fact, there's a lot of other options she could have did than have me. But so I'm just super grateful she had me. And yeah.
Yeah, that's probably ringing a few bells, Anne-Marie, because you currently have a couple daughters that you're in the process of raising up, right? And you make it up as you go along, right?
Oh yeah, totally winging it.
It's a good thing, because when you're winging it, that's when you're basically tapping into anything you can tap into, and at some point, hopefully, you tap in within.
Yeah.
The tendency is always to look for outside sources, outside ideas, and so forth. But at some point, you got to tap in within. And I get the feeling, Ty, that's kind of what you did. You kind of learned fairly early to tap in within.
100%. You're spot on in what you said. And when you're looking for outside circumstances, situation, or people to fix whatever you got going on, it's never going to work out good, because the answers are never out there. They're always in here. They're internal.
Yeah.
And, everybody, I think, goes on that journey down that path in a different way. But I think it's very important. Every single person listening to this, you need to stop looking out there or listening to what's out there and start listening to what's inside, and take a deep, hardcore look of who you really are. Because here's what I realized: most people have no clue who they are, because we grow up listening to our parents. We grow up listening to people that influence us, whether it's our pastors, whether it's our teachers, then we have society, then we have our friends. So all of these people are constantly showing us things and telling us things. And what happens is we build this mental picture, this belief system of who we really are. And a lot of times we forget who we actually are. So by the time you hit an adult, 18, 19 years of all these people telling you who you are and how to think and what you should like, you don't know who you are. You have absolutely zero clue. You think you do. Like, there's probably people listening to this and they're like, what do you mean? I know exactly who I am. Well, if you haven't done this process, I can assuredly tell you, no, you don't. You don't.
It's true. And some of us take more than 19 years to figure that one out. Some of us take 50 years.
Yeah. Some people, you know what? I was having this conversation with my wife, and I think a lot of people never come to this point.
Yeah.
They never come to the point where they take that look within. And I found that it's different for everybody how they come to it. Sometimes it's a lot of times it's not a good thing that makes you do this. Like, it could be a trauma, it could be an accident, it could be a death, it could be, usually it's something pretty traumatic. Not always, but a lot of times it's something pretty traumatic.
Yeah. In fact, if you don't have something traumatic going on, you're probably in worse shape. It takes me a long time to come to grips with that, but I've learned that just from having all the different guests on my show over the years. The ones who have not gone through something fairly traumatic, it doesn't have to be deeply traumatic, it doesn't have to be full of it doesn't have to be a drugged up baby, it doesn't have to be that much, it can be much smaller than that, but you have to go through some kind of trauma and come out the other side before you really truly start to learn who you are, and you really truly start to learn what your passion is in life and what it is that's important to you, what's not important. All these very essential questions and answers. Because the ones who don't get there, I always tell the same story. I have exactly one episode that I've done over the years that I did not publish. All the rest of them have been published. The only one I didn't publish was a kid who came onto the show who made his first $1 million on his first try at age 18. And he hadn't gone through traumas. It just, everything hit. And he was the most miserable human being you've ever interviewed in your life.
Really?
I was going to say that would probably be even worse.
It is. And you could actually say it was his trauma in a sense.
Yeah, that could be, I could definitely see how that could be worse, because he probably, again, I don't know, I wasn't on the interview, but it happens to a lot of people. They think this is the answer to all their everything. And then when they get it and it's not, now they're lost. Now they don't know, because they think when they obtain this thing, that's going to do it. When they finally reach that pinnacle and it's gone just like that, it's not good.
Yeah. And in his particular case, because he had had his success so early in life, he had never really grown out of that teenage, that period you go through when you go through puberty and you go through all the stuff that basically leads you up to being an adult. He never actually passed out of that period. So he was behaving like he was still a teenager, even though he was in his 20s.
No, I think it's important, like you were saying earlier, it's important to go through these things. And I think most people do, but like you said, that person who thinks they don't or haven't had it, they're almost in a worse place, because it's almost like in this place of denial. And I think people's experiences, they're kind of the same. And when I say kind of the same, so for me, yes, I was born, a drug and alcohol addicted baby. That someone else could have, they when they were younger, they were going out to the ice cream truck and their mom told them that they couldn't have ice cream. So that messed them up in the head. They thought they weren't good enough. Yeah. They thought they weren't capable. They felt like they weren't loved. Right. That could do exactly the same thing to them that happened to me. So that's why I say, yeah, maybe you weren't born a drug and alcohol addicted baby, but that doesn't mean what you got going on is any better or any worse than what I had.
Absolutely right.
So I always like saying that, because sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll be like, well, I didn't have that. I don't know. I said, no, don't make light of what you went through. What you went through could have been way worse than what I went through. May not seem like it on the outside, but we don't know that. We're not here to judge that. Like, let's just kind of make some corrections. Let's work through some things and let's go from there. But it's not a battle of who had the worst trauma. Like, nah, it's not how it works.
It seems like it is with some people, but I'm glad to hear you say that, because I agree totally.
Okay, yours is worse.
Yeah, right.
You win, yeah.
You win, yeah, right.
Like that's bad, because now that means you want to hold on to it. Like, you really want to hold on to it. Like, and some people do that. Their trauma is part of them. Like, they've owned it so much, they don't want to let it go.
True.
Like, well, this happened to me, and like, I'll just go here because we're going down here. I run into this a lot of times with Black people. Sorry, I run into Black people a lot of times. I can say this. I'm just gonna say this. Sorry.
You can say things I can't say, I'm sure.
This is why I say them, because I can say them and nobody can label me a racist.
Well, they could try, but
they can try. Because I see Black people all the time, and we hold ourselves back. And I hope there's some Black people listening to this, and listen closely. There's no one holding us back. We've had a Black president. We've had, now, and again, I don't know how we're down this path, but I'm just going to say it. I just felt compelled to say it. So is there racism? Yes. And there's always going to be racism. It's always going to be there. Let's just get over that. The difference between how things are now, first of all, that word is misused. People don't even really understand what that means. That's number one. Number two is, before, there were certain things, because of the color of your skin or your gender, if you're a female, there were certain things you could not do. You weren't allowed to do, right? Some of the things they could kill you if you did them. Those don't exist anymore. And if you do run into someone who's so ignorant about the color of your skin, just go find another way to do whatever it is you want to do. Like, don't let that stop you. And this is what and it's not just Black people, but it's like too many people, we put up these false barriers. We put up these false walls, and we tell ourselves these false stories and give ourselves these limiting beliefs. And it's just not true. That's just the story you've told yourself, and you've bought into it. So you can keep buying into that story that doesn't serve you, or you can just rewrite your story. I would rather rewrite my story. I think it's much cooler when you rewrite the story, because some people, like your story, you're the villain, you're the person in distress. Why not rewrite your story so you're the superhero?
Yeah. On a broader level, a more society-wide level, what we're really talking about is a victim psychology.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Yeah.
Terrible mindset to have. It's so terrible. Ugh.
And it goes back to what you were saying earlier. People don't know themselves. So if they label themselves as the victim, they know who they are because that's their identity.
Yeah. And like you said, so now if you label yourself the victim, you're the victim, that means you need someone to come and save you. Well, I hate to break it to you, Tony, ain't nobody looking to come and save you. So you might as well like figure it out. I know you're important. We're all important people, and we think everybody's supposed to save us. But no one right now is strategically coming up with a plan saying, how can I save Tywin from his past trauma that he's dealing with? No. No.
I knew I forgot to do something today. It was on the list. Save Tywin today. That was what was how did I forget that?
Right? No. And if someone, no, it's just.
I love this though. This is actually one of our favorite topics around here: the prevalence of the victim psychology. And I'm kind of curious to know what your take is on this. My take is we are in an era now. It's an era that's been described a lot of different ways, but for me, it's an era where victim psychology is being challenged at its root to the people who are experiencing it in ways that it's not happening.
This is going to be a fun podcast. I already could tell. You're gonna get me in trouble.
But I really believe it's true because I'm seeing so much evidence of people who are coming face to face with themselves in ways that they never had before, and that inevitably leads to questioning along this line.
Yeah, I think there's two sides. There's the side that people that they understand like a victim mentality and they know it's not going to serve you, but then there's other people that they understand that, well, if we serve these people the victim mindset and we keep them with the victim mindset, you're very easily controlled if you have a victim mindset. Mm-hmm. You're easily controlled if you have that mindset. Because again, you need somebody to help you. You need someone to pull you out. In a lot of times, in a way, these people show up that claim they're there to help you, they're not really there to help you. Mm-hmm. They're not. It's just because, again, they're just not. So I love this topic. I love the topic of having a victim mindset and not having a victim mindset, because it's something you can change like this.
Yeah.
That stuff takes time. This isn't really one of them. You literally just have to decide, like, okay, I'm gonna take full control of my life. I'm gonna take full responsibility. And here's the cool thing, and I hope someone's listening to this and they're like, well, are you serious? Yes. If you just decide, like, I'm going to take full responsibility for everything in my life, first of all, you immediately get this weight that's lifted off. Because now you're not waiting for anybody. Now you're in control. If you take control of everything that happened in your life, whatever it looks like, even if it's bad, it's not good, whether it's your finances, whether it's your relationship, it doesn't matter. Now you're in the driver's seat. Now you're in control and you can immediately start changing it. If that's not the most powerful thing, I don't really know what is. So powerful.
I totally agree. Yeah. The other thing I always like to remind myself is just because I flipped the switch doesn't mean I'm going to get it right.
Yeah. And that's it. And I love that. And you don't have to get it right.
You don't have
That's
to.
a good thing. No.
You know, see, this is and again, I'm gonna get in trouble. This is
I love the way he prefaces it every time. I'm gonna get so much trouble for this.
No one's gonna like me after this. Because I think part of the school system does this. The school system teaches us you have to get everything right. And if you get things wrong, it basically programs us to think we have to get everything right. And that's just not how the real world works.
Nope.
Right? We learn from our problems. We learn from mistakes. Those are when we really learn. Those are when we grow. Those are when we can get better. But I mean, 12 years of going to school, or however long it is they have us in that thing. And if you retire every
Sometimes it feels like longer than that when you're that.
Yes. Yes. So we have all the, so then you end up as an adult and you're literally, I run into people all the time. They're so scared to even make a move.
Yes.
Because they think they might get something wrong or they might make
that was me. That was me. Yeah.
That was me too. I didn't always think like this. The system got me too.
It took me years to even face that I had a problem to deal with.
Yeah. The school system does wonders on you.
Sorry, Henry, what was you were just saying?
I was going to say, that's why I didn't go to school a lot. I used to, truant off, I think it's called, because I just wasn't being stretched. I didn't agree with it. It wasn't for me. And that's why I've said certainly to my eldest daughter, she's gone into high school last year, just survive it, have an experience, enjoy it, do your best, learn what you can, but it's not the be all and end all.
No, yeah. So my oldest, we went the traditional route just because, again, I didn't really know any better at that time. But I have two younger ones, and we're going to homeschool them.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. Again, I'm not against teachers. I love teachers. Teachers are great for the most part. But
I love your preface there. Yeah, for the most part.
But I mean, think about everything that's changed over the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Everything has changed. Nothing looks the same. School, it looks exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
If we teleported someone back to 1910 and put them in the schoolroom, it looks exactly the same.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it might be a different brick instead of something made out of wood, but other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah, it's crazy. I actually was involved in founding an alternative school that put the kids in charge of their own education. So while I haven't done the homeschooling route, I have done that one.
Yeah, that's good.
And through that route, boy, did I gain an appreciation for how great kids are at learning.
Kids are amazing at learning.
Yeah.
Is that because we take them, they're so creative and they got all this energy, and we're like, okay, sit in this desk, don't move, shut up, don't say anything, raise your hand if you want to talk. Like we start just molding them to be, and we wonder why adults don't know how to communicate, don't like all of these things.
Right.
Get programmed.
Yeah, exactly right. That's one of the most important things that you have to learn when you're a kid is how to communicate, how to socialize. Yeah. If you aren't learning that, your school is holding you back.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's just a lot of stuff I don't know why. Well, I mean, I know why we don't have it in there, but like they don't teach us.
Crazy. That's why. No, I'm sorry. It seems like that though. It seems at times like we're crazy.
Like no one teaches you in school how to deal with your emotions and your feelings. No one teaches you like much about money, finances, investment. Like there's just so many topics. It's like, well, why don't we learn that in school? But hey,
you could do entire shows on that. We've actually.
I was going to say that's a topic on its own, isn't it?
That's a deep hole right there, man.
Well, in case you haven't figured this out, Tywin, we go down rabbit holes all the time. So this is like a normal behavioral opportunity here on the show.
But you know what? It's so good to get on like podcasts like this and just have open dialogue, even if it's because here's a dialogue I love. I love having dialogue with people who actually have completely different viewpoints of me on the opposite. I think it's such a beautiful thing because it's like. And to be able to just sit down with someone who drastically does not think like you, because you never know. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I got something wrong. Just because I don't agree with what you have to say. Look, we can still be friends. I think society is missing this nowadays. Like, you don't hang with people who agree with you. Actually, that's probably not a good idea. You should get some little bit of friction. Get somebody who challenges your beliefs.
I mean, it's going to piss you off.
Yeah.
Let's not pretend that it won't. It will definitely piss you off. But you'll learn from it much more than you'd ever learn from somebody you agree with.
You know what? I think I've gotten to the point. It doesn't make, for me personally, it doesn't make me mad. It really doesn't. because I'm just a curious person.
Mm-hmm.
So like when some people have certain viewpoints, I'm genuinely curious how they came to that. I'm like, so instead of me calling them stupid, which I probably would have done before and just got mad and all that, I'd be like, how did your brain cells put that together and it makes sense enough to actually verbally say it to me? Like,
I don't usually think of them as stupid. I think of them as crazy, but it's the same idea.
Oh, I'm sure back in the day I used all kind of terminology. So, but it's I don't know. I mean, we have a thing like, even like this is so cool. We're all in different parts of the world having this conversation. Just imagine like the amazing things that could be accomplished if people actually had dialogue with people who thought different than them.
Well, I think about the fact that this is only 20 years old. Well, in realistic terms, it's about 5 years old.
Yeah.
But I mean, the ability to, at least in some way, if you have the right skills, even that's only about 20 years old.
Yeah.
That's a very small period of time when you look at how things evolve, how things develop over time. And given that, I think we've actually come a long way in terms of how much connection there is going on. There's a whole lot more to be done. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we've only uncovered a fraction of it, but even that fraction is pretty damn impressive.
Very, and it continues to build on itself.
Yeah,
it really does. Like technology, it's a beautiful thing. Sometimes it's again, there's positive and negative to everything.
Yeah,
but it really truly can be a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Well, I mean, a screwdriver can, it can screw in a screw, or it can be a weapon, or whatever you want to use it to be, but it's still just a freaking tool.
100%. You nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
And that's also part of the non-victim psychology. It's the victim psychology that tries to take tools and turn them into evils.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I'm really, that whole victim mindset is like, ugh. Sometimes I just want to like shake people. You can fix your life so simple. Some people, they think they're so off, and it's like, no, you're okay. Take a deep breath and let's just work through this. Because, and here's the beautiful thing. I could see maybe back in the days when you didn't have access to the internet, books have always been around, but like if you weren't exposed to people who were like you,
right,
that made it. I could see you like taking on a victim mindset.
Sure.
But nowadays, I don't care if it's the color of your skin. I don't care if it's your sex. Whatever it is that you think is holding you back, can with 100% guarantee with certainty tell you there's someone 10 times worse than you. They're doing 100 times better than you. And then there's a whole bunch of those people. So it's not like it's just one, because you could use the excuse, victim is going to be like, well, it's just because they're blank, 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 blank. Yeah, there's 1,000 of them.
But when it happens over and over again, it gets harder to explain.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe it is me that needs to change. So but it's such a powerful thing when people understand that. And I get when you have that mindset, you don't, probably even just me talking like this is probably just irritating you just hearing it, but it's true. It's so true. And I don't know any other way, like besides like shaking you, slapping you, and it's so true. You can just, and there's probably people listening to this and they're not in a good space. They're not. They feel like things are coming crumbling in and the life can't get any worse. Well, first of all, it can get worse, so don't put that out there.
This is true.
But everybody has things to be grateful for. I don't care what your situation is. If you have that mindset of like, oh, it can't get no worse, and stop for a second and just ask yourself, well, what do I have to be grateful for? It's such a powerful thing just doing. What can I be grateful for? And at first you're going to be annoyed and you're like, I have nothing to be grateful for. Okay, fine. I know you don't have anything, but if there was something, what would
yeah, right.
And then, okay, well, I'm alive. Okay, well, that's
a good start. Yeah.
Good start, right? You're breathing pretty good. Yeah.
Right.
Hell yeah. And you start going, and then you do that long enough, it's boom, you're out of your funk.
Yeah.
There's always something, even in the worst day, that you can be grateful for.
Always something.
Now, I'm curious, Tywin, to see if this is your experience. My experience is that when I have talked with and I've talked with hundreds of people over the years, but when I would talk with somebody and they went through their dark night of their soul, their terrible thing that they went through, they were in a mind space where, yeah, they became aware that they were responsible, but then they just started to blame themselves for everything.
I'm trying to think, is that the process that I think I was just so, I understand what you're saying, and I have ran into that with a lot of clients. So I do understand what you're saying. I think it was a little different for me.
Okay.
It was different for me just because I was so excited. Because you want to talk about being a victim. That was me. I had that in the bag. I could blame anybody.
You're good at it then.
I could give you some excuses. It was everybody's fault but mine.
All right.
So I remember specifically what happened. I was listening to Jim Rome. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jim Rome.
Yeah.
Jim Rome? Okay. So Jim Rome, for those maybe that don't know, he's let's just say he's a big time personal development. He's an older white guy. I love Jim Rome. But when I first started listening to him, I'm like, what is this old white guy saying? And he talks like real slow, and I'm like, dude, get to the point already.
Right.
But again, I didn't know. That's how personal development I was, not very at all at that time. And then I'll never forget, he said, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. And I don't know why that simple saying, I'm just like, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better.
It clicked.
Like, oh, it just clicked. I was like, wait. What he's saying is, if I want my life to change, all I have to do is get better. And I'm in control of that. So the reason I share that is because I was just so excited. I was so excited because I genuinely was the person. That's just why I know how people think like this, because I thought like this. I'm like, I was waiting for someone to come and save me. I was that person. I was just dependent on it. Well, I can't do anything. I didn't verbally say this, but this was my mindset. It was like, I can't do anything until someone comes and saves me. So what do you expect me to do? But then when I heard this one saying, I was like, it was like, poof, lifted. I was like, whoa, I can do whatever I want to do. So I was just so excited. But I do understand what you're saying, because it's not about beating yourself up. It's not about that. Yeah. It's more of taking back your power. Do
you remember how old you were when you heard that?
20. Let's see. I bought my first house at 25. Probably 22.
22. Okay.
If I'm 40 now.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense to me. The reason I say that, the reason I asked that question is my friend Joel, who does one of the shows with me each week, like Anne Marie does. He and I were talking about this one time, and we realized that a major driving factor as to how well someone is able to absorb this fact and kind of grab it and run with it is how long they've been alive. The shorter the period of time, no matter how much trauma they've been through, and he's dealt with some kids who've been through some trauma, kind of on level of what you deal with. He dealt with a lot of foster kids and so forth. The younger they are, the quicker they're able to make the adjustment, no matter what they went through. The older they are, the more baggage that they've developed over time, the harder it is to make the shift.
100%. Yeah, because your neural pathways are deeper.
Yeah.
It's literally ingrained in you, and it's so much harder to change. That's what, like, you're 100%. That's why, because kids their brains are just so malleable. You know, they soak up everything like a sponge, which is great when you put them in the right circumstances.
Yes.
But when they're in the wrong circumstances, they still suck the same stuff up.
That's right.
You know. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. He's 100% right on that. You can still change as you get older. It's just it takes more, and you're probably going to need more help to do it.
Yes. Yes.
Like for me, it was hearing that quote, and that did it. And I'm not saying that can't do it as an adult, but like if you're older, when I say older, really even as an adult, I would go get a coach, get a mentor, go see someone. Because that will speed up the process. You try to do it yourself, like I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. I would go see.
That was me. That's what I had, because I didn't have anybody to go to.
Yeah, I honestly, that's probably the advice that I give anybody. Like anything you want to learn at this stage of my life, this is probably one of the things that when I turned 40, one of the biggest like aha moments I had was coaches and mentors, how powerful they are. I wish I would have known that younger. So whatever it is that you want to do in life, go get a coach, go get a mentor, go seek expert help. Whatever that looks like, whether it's what are the people called? No, not a psychologist, therapist. Whatever works for you, go seek professional help in whatever it is. Because it's like a time machine. It'll speed up the process.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of women are much better at this. Women, you guys are good at this, much better than men, because men have egos. And a lot of times our egos they won't let us. I shouldn't say they won't let us. That doesn't sound right. We don't let our own ego allow us to do. It just gets in the way. We think, I can figure this out. I can work through it myself.
Exactly. Yes.
And women, I just find in general, I know this is a big broad blanket on there, but in general, I think women tend to I think they're just smarter than us in general, but if I'm being honest.
You're not going to get an argument out of me.
Yeah, they're just smarter. They're just like, why don't we just go find the people that do it? Professional.
But is it that, or is it just that little boys were told to suck it up, don't worry, boys don't cry? Is it that, or is it deeper?
That's a very good question. I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think it's really that. I think it's our egos, our male egos get in the way. And I think in terms of what this topic we're talking about right now, women they're smarter. They're smarter because of our egos. Like our egos, like as a man, we're literally like, I'll figure it out. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. What a woman will be, well, we could do that, or we could just go find somebody that already understands it and figure it out. You know, so I just think when it comes to this specific thing, women, not that women don't have egos, they're just usually not as big as a man's. This is when I think this is where I think a husband and wife or two people that are compatible, this can really help if you have a good relationship with your spouse, because again, you have to have the good relationship. Otherwise, this creates a whole argument right here.
Yeah.
But if you understand this, and as a man, you can say, you know what, let me take a step back and listen to my wife. You know, she probably might be onto something here. You just speed up. So
I think the way I'd express it is, if it's a man, how willing is that man to learn from a woman?
Very true.
Right?
Very true.
Because if you're not willing to learn from the woman, that's that ego you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But if you are willing to learn from a woman, not only do you have a chance, you're going to break through.
100%. 100%. But I think a woman who knows her stuff, which a lot of women do, women are just amazing. God knew what he was doing when he designed men.
We are never wrong. We are never wrong.
He designed men and was like, yeah, we're going to need to get him some help. He's going to need a little help. Where was I going to go with this?
But also, you know, the majority of those that help out there is female, because I think it's changing, but it's dominated by female therapists and stuff. Yeah. Then if you've got a guy whose ego's going, I'm not talking to a woman, then there's less resources out there.
I think a woman that's really good at her craft a woman that understands a man can still do it, because a woman who knows what she's doing, she can control a man anyway. She just can. Because what they'll do is they'll control you. And I don't like using that word control, because that sounds bad. It sounds very bad. But you can guide a man, a woman that's confident and knows her stuff. She can guide a man and he'll think he's in control, and he's really not.
That's true, because I would imagine there's a lot of wives out there who kind of plant a seed somewhere, and the husband thinks it's their idea, and it's not.
And I think that's a good wife's job. She'll plant the seed, and then the husband will pick it up. It'll germinate. Might take a little bit, and then I think he's gonna brag about it. Oh, okay, sweetie.
Bloody brilliant idea. Well done.
Good job.
I should have thought of that.
But women are amazing. But so are men. I think we're at an interesting time with men. I think right now men need a lot of men need guidance. That's kind of why I got into coaching, specifically men.
You're anticipating my question because I was going to ask that.
Oh, go ahead. What's your question?
How'd you get into coaching? Tell us the story.
Oh man, well, so I got into the health, the fitness, and all that stuff, honestly, because my parents, both of them, everybody in my family, my adopted family, I call them my family. I don't like saying adopted family.
Yeah.
But my family,
well, they are.
Morbidly obese, morbidly obese. And, my dad was my superhero, growing up, but I just watched his health plummet. It plummet. And I seen him try like tons of different diets.
Oh yeah.
I seen him go through the stages of pre-diabetic, diabetic. Then he gets on, the medication, metformin. Then he's on insulin. Then it's insulin multiple times a day. Then it's like, okay, you're going to get your leg amputated. So it was all these steps. And I watched all that happen. I lost my dad when I was 20. I lost my mom when I was 30. So I was like, you know what? I need to get myself together first. So I got myself in track. Because I'm not one of them people that, let me go read a book and learn how to help people. No, again, I need to make sure whatever I'm doing is working on me first. So got myself together first. And then that's when I started working with people. And then I worked with everybody, men, women. But over the last couple of years, I got saved a couple of years ago. And I just felt this calling to work with men. And I was like, guy, you sure about that? Because I got a lot of female clients. Like, you just want me to cut them off? And I just felt the calling to do it. So, I trusted that, and that's what I did. But I love it. I think we need more strong male leadership. I feel really bad for a lot of the women out there right now. And not in a way where I think women have stepped up to the plate because they had to. They really had to step up because there's just a lot of men that aren't doing what we need to do. So I'll hear men complain sometimes about women. I'm like, well, why are you complaining? They're doing what they're doing because you're not doing your job. So, well, here you go. So I just think a lot of men, and again, maybe this is my old way of thinking, whatever, I'll stick to it. But I just think men, we just need to step it up. And I think there's a lot of men that want to step up. We just don't know how. I think society has beat us up. I think there's a lot of men kind of scared to be men these days.
Give us an example. Make up an example of somebody who kind of typifies what you're talking about.
As far as a man?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think so there's probably the guy who he's just honestly gotten beat up his whole life. He's doing the best that he knows how to do. He's going to work, doing his job. But for a lot of people, let's face it, it's a hard time financially. Like it can be hard. Like it's not that they're not putting in the work.
Right.
But maybe they're in the wrong field or they're having a hard time. So he's already feeling not so much in himself there. A lot of times in the marketplace, women tend to make more than men, which from a psychological standpoint for a man, that can play tricks with people's head. So again, that's just a little bit of it. And then you got the compound effect of the majority of the population, they carry extra weight, they're overweight, right? So they got their health deteriorating over here. Their energy's deteriorating over here. Their testosterone levels are dropping over here. So it's like you have all of these things that are kind of in play. It's not like one particular thing, and it's just kind of beats you up. And sometimes you need someone to come in and slap you around a little bit and say, okay, let's put on your big boy pants, pull these things up, and let's step back into who you're supposed to be.
You said something I need to push back on because it's something that people will push back on societally. So I need to bring it in, which is the idea that women make more than men. There are a lot of people who will say, no, it's the other way around. Women haven't caught up to men yet. What you're doing is you're putting out there a falsehood. So how would you respond to that?
So here's how I would say that. I would say first, look at the numbers. Like that's what I would say. I would go look at the numbers. So let me speak from a standpoint of people that I've personally worked with, right? Because I don't want to put out any false numbers because I don't know the overall numbers. In my clientele typically that I work with, the woman makes more money. She just does. It could be my demographics, what I work with, but it's very, very common that the woman will either make more, or even sometimes it's the same, but a lot of times the woman is making more. They just do. With my particular client base.
Tell us about your clientele. Like, give us a broad brush of who is your typical client.
Sure. So I work with your typical everyday, hardworking American is my ideal client. Your everyday Joe that you see walking around. That's pretty much who I work with. And I've worked with both sides now. So I've been in the industry 15 years. The majority of that 15 years, I worked with both men and women. Mm-hmm. Right. So the last couple of years, I've just worked. Well, really the last just year, I've worked with just men. So I used to be the guy that the wife would go to and complain about their husband, talk about their husband. So like I heard a lot of those stories of how they felt about their husband. So it was very easy when I went on the other side to be like, okay, guys, here's what we need to work on. I know because here's what happens. The wife tells the husband one thing, because she don't want to hurt his feelings, but behind his back, it's something completely different. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different story, and again, I can only speak from my personal experience. Other people might have different experiences. These are experiences I've dealt with. So and I'm not blaming it on the wife or the husband or whatever. So the wife will tell the husband one thing, oh, you're great, you're this, I'm happy, this, whatever. But then behind his back, that's not really how she's feeling. And I think it all goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. We have to understand ourselves before we can start dealing in a relationship. You know, it's very important you understand yourself, because if you don't understand yourself, well, how do you even know what to tell a person you want?
True.
So because I was working with a lot of the wives, it was very easy for me to make that transition and start working with the husband and have him kind of step into who they need to be. Because how I feel, they think they should be is irrelevant. What I think they should be as a man, it doesn't matter what I think. It's what do they think that's important, not what do I think.
Well, as Anne-Marie was talking about earlier, there is a belief system that says that a lot of this is trained into us as males. There are certain aspects of a male upbringing. We're supposed to bury our feelings. We're supposed to man it out. We could come up with a whole list of these aphorisms to describe it. It honestly sounds like you don't really buy into them.
No, I do. And I think she's right. I think she's 100% right up into a certain age point. I think that's switched and has switched, because I 100% agree with her. Depending on your age and how old you were, 100%. Men don't cry. Men don't be a wuss. That's 100% true. Mm-hmm. That's switching amongst the new generation. I don't know if I can draw a line where that's switched. I think that's definitely switching. And then it puts the people that did grow up of you're a man, you're supposed to be this way, men don't cry. Society's telling them don't be like that, because that's not good to be that kind of man. Mm-hmm. Which again, I'm not saying that is good to be that type of man.
Sure.
But there's a certain side of that you do need to be, in my opinion. There's a certain, like, men are men and women are women. That's just I think there's a difference. We're not the same, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm so thankful women are not like men.
Me too.
Terrible. That would be terrible, right? Doesn't mean one's greater than the other. I think we get this sometimes wrong. Or no, women can do just as good as men, or more most of the time better, right? I don't think there's certain roles necessarily for certain people. I don't get into that. But I do think there is a difference between a man and a woman. And honestly, that's up to each individual to figure that out for yourself. But I just tend to work with, they don't start off as strong male leaders, but by the time I'm done with them, they'll be a strong male leader that can lead their family. Because I think the world needs more.
You just teed it up for me, and I want to thank you for that. So what is a strong male leader?
I think so for me, here's my belief system as far as what a strong male leader is. Number one would be God-fearing. Again, I work with all kinds of people, so that one they might see different on that one. Mm-hmm. But for me, number one is God-fearing. Number 2, which for some people this might be their number 1, a provider and a protector. A provider and a protector. Someone that looks after his family, someone that looks after his community, someone that's dependable and reliable, someone who puts others before himself. Yeah.
So just basically those 2 things right there.
Provider, protector, an asset to society, asset to his community, stands on truth, stands up for what's right and what's wrong, and is willing to, I'm going to say the word go to war, but I don't mean technically go to war, but I mean you stand on your truth and you're willing to defend it. You're willing to defend it. You're open to the idea. I don't think anybody should be closed off to like, this is how it is. No, but you're willing to stand on your truth. You don't waver. You don't waver. I think that's very important because I think there's a lot of men, for whatever reason. I think it's hard for a woman, and again, I'm not a woman. This is just what I think. So Anne-Marie, you can tell me if I'm completely wrong on this. I don't see that it would be very hard for a woman to really trust and follow a man that's shaky, that doesn't have her interest in mind in everything he does, that financially is unstable. Now, that doesn't mean you have to make millions and millions of dollars and all that. No, you might not even be in the best place now, but do you have a plan?
Yeah.
Do you have a plan for our family? And Anne-Marie, you can correct me at any time and just.
As you were saying that, I was just literally feeling that's too risky, because I think we, as women, we have a lot of responsibilities that, if there's children involved, we are that nurturer. And to have anything flaky in our lives is too risky.
Yeah.
Now, there are women who still rely on that. Don't get me wrong, but not the ones who I think is so sure of themselves. So, yeah, I would go along with what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's important.
But I would also add educator into that category that you were going through, because I think strong educators.
100%. 100%. I agree.
And of course, in order to educate, you have to have something to educate with.
Yes.
So you have to know something.
Yes. You have to have intelligence. And it's something you can learn. I mean, I think people should be aspiring. I'm very big on education. Now, I'm not big on traditional education, but I'm very big on education.
You're in fair territory around here.
Yeah.
Traditional education, but I am very, very, very big and adamant about education because it doesn't stop. It's not regardless if you go to bachelor's degree, master's, whatever it is. Here's what I think where the education system fails big time. People stop. It never stops. You're in this constant sense of growth. You're this constant sense of working on yourself and the people around you. So you're growing together. You're growing with your family. You're growing with your kids. You're growing with your community. Everybody comes up. Everybody comes up when you have this mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you abandon the mindset of learning, what you're really abandoning is not just the mindset of growth, but of living. You're in decline.
It's very scary when this person I know that already. That's not good territory to be on.
Not really. No.
It can be very scary. So I think regardless of wherever you're at, you need to be open. I think again, now that you're saying like all these things, I was like, man, maybe I should make a list of what a perfect man would be. because at the same time too, I think like in there it needs to be caring, loving. Like it's not just this hardcore, I'm gonna go to war. No.
Right.
No. You're capable of that if necessary. But that's not who, I think people should know you as caring, loving, compassionate. Those are all, and those I think are the other stuff is easier for men to pick up. The loving, the caring, the compassionate. A lot of men have a hard time with that one.
Yeah, you're talking about learning to be kind.
Yeah. Yes.
And that is a skill.
Yes.
It's not one that is taught. It's one you have to learn on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's valuable. It's invaluable. It's beyond valuable. It's so valuable it lasts your entire life.
Hmm.
I love that you put the educator part in. That's so important. It's so important. I'm so glad you said that, because it does no good if you become this person you don't know how to teach anybody any of these skills. It does zero. You're like, okay, great for you.
Hmm.
But
interestingly enough, too, if you really do learn it, you are always capable of teaching it.
you're always capable.
Well, I just pulled that from literally sort of thinking about my husband, and, you know, my daughters come to me if they've got a problem, but they also go to him. And when I hear him talking to them from a different perspective, blows my mind. It's such good advice, and it's so caring. And it's just, that's why I think dads are so important, because dads are educators.
Yeah, I think it's that family dynamic. And this is an area that, because I have 5 kids and I have kids from multiple women. And if I could tell anybody that there's a reason, a household needs a husband and a wife to raise it. I really think, I really do stand on this one. And I know that there's broken households and split, whatever the word terminology someone wants to use. I get that stuff happens. But
yeah, it's very common. I mean, the word family doesn't even mean what it used to mean anymore, really.
Yeah. And it's having both, having split households, and a household where me and my wife are in the same house, we have kids together, we're on the same page. It makes a world of difference, not just for us, not just for our kids, but their kids. There's like, family is a huge thing, and when you start dismantling that, it creates major problems. And a lot of people don't talk about this, and I didn't even realize this until, again, as I got older, experiences and things like that. It creates, like, the child that grows up with both parents in the household is at such an advantage to the kid that doesn't. They just are. I'm not saying the kid that has them split, is not going to make nothing of themselves, no, I'm not saying that. But there's an advantage to having both parents in the household, assuming you have 2 stable parents. Now, I could go,
that's a fairly long.
Someone's gonna bite back, and they're right. Like, it depends on the parent. So I agree. But I think, and Jen, and I say this because just listening to Anne Marie when she said it, it was so awesome how she's like, you talk to your daughters, and then their father gives them advice. It comes from 2 different perspectives, but both perspectives are needed. Both perspectives are needed, and who knows, maybe the girls at that time, maybe they needed to hear what their father had to say, and then another time maybe it's what their mother had to say. So I think there's kudos to you for that, for having that now. So,
well, I learned from it, because there's things like, wow, I never thought of that. So I learned too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the other skill I think that is the big skill to learn in life, and that is how to learn from others, regardless of who they are.
There you go. And I like the tagline you said at the end, regardless of who.
Regardless, it doesn't make any difference who they are.
You can learn from everybody.
Anybody.
Like, I think you can learn. Sometimes you can learn more from the people that you don't want to be like than the people you want to be like.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Again, it'll piss you off for a while, but you're going to learn a ton from it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you just all I have to do is look at your habits. Yeah. I look at your habits. I look at your disciplines. It's very easy. I guess I probably learned this in school because I used to copy a lot, right? So, like, as an adult, it's just so much easier just copying success. You don't have to make anything up. If you want to be a successful parent, go find 2 parents that have successfully parented and just copy what they do. If you want to run a successful business, find somebody that ran a successful business, copy what they do. If you want to be in shape, find someone that's successful in that and copy what they do. But a lot of times what we do is we ask our friends and our family for advice, and that is not their strong point. That is not their expertise. So now we start picking up habits and behaviors from people that we don't even want to be like in the first place.
So be selective.
Be very selective. Be very, very, very careful who you listen to. Because Because sometimes you're listening to someone intentionally, you're listening to someone, but sometimes unintentionally you're taking advice from people. Now, because this can come from TV, what you listen to, what you hear. Like we take all of that in. And you're going to develop a cognitive bias. So you might want to make sure you're very careful what you're listening to, what you're watching. I remember being younger thinking like, it don't matter if I listen to this, or it don't matter if I watch that. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And here's why it matters so much. Well, and I'm sure you guys are very familiar with this. I'm sure probably listeners are too. You have a conscious mind and you have an unconscious mind. Well, the majority of your time, your unconscious mind is doing the work. Your conscious mind is sitting back chilling. So yeah, and your unconscious mind is playing off of things you've seen, things you've heard. So, like, it's way more active than your conscious mind. So you need to get that thing right. And if it's not right, you better start uninstalling some of the software you got and reinstalling new one. That's the cool thing about our brain and how it works. You can install new software just like you could on a computer. Well, you're a technology guy. You probably know all about that.
Oh yeah, and we talk about reprogramming ourselves all the time. So it absolutely fits in perfectly.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing. It's such a cool, like, regardless of whoever's listening to this, however messed up you are, congratulations. You can fix it.
Welcome to the human race.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that's a good point. We so many people focus on what they're putting in their body and their healthy food, and they're not focusing on what they're putting in their mind.
Oh, yes.
Is that healthy food?
Really important.
Your mindset, and this is coming from, I love working out. Absolutely love working out. I love everything.
You and Joel would have a great time, by the way. The guy can like deadlift 500 pounds. Like, how long he's been working out. But
oh man, I love working out. But I'll tell you what, if you're not working on your mind,
it's true. You know, Anne-Marie, how many times have I mentioned that it gets really frustrating that we run out of time?
It does, doesn't it? It goes far too quickly.
I mean, and this is one of those times. Look, we're actually past the hour. Like, can't we have another one? Come on.
I had so much fun.
It's one of those conversations where you just want to keep going and going and going. Wow.
It's so cool.
Tywin, you're gonna have to write a book and then come back.
There you go.
In the works.
It's in the works. Does it have a title? A working title?
No.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. No.
All right. So
it's not really about my story, but
okay.
But yeah, it's in the works.
All right.
But I enjoyed it. It's really refreshing having conversations like this. Your listeners are extremely lucky to get this, because I find that in the world today, there's just a lot of meaningless talk and stuff. So it's probably really refreshing that people get, host and guests, and they get to hear from you guys on stuff that can really like move the needle forward for them. So kudos to you guys and for what you're doing.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. A couple things we got to do before we part company. First of all, you got to tell people how to find you. I mean, because we haven't touched on that yet. And if people can't find you, then they can't find you, and that's not good.
Yeah, absolutely. So probably the easiest way, you can find me on pretty much all social media. Well, let me not say all, because there's like 1,000. On Facebook or Instagram are probably the best places to find me. And it's just my name, Tywin Kalandyk. I'll spell it out because it's a weird Polish name. TYWINKALANDYK, either on Facebook or Instagram. Put up a lot of free content, great, just mutual content. If you check out the content and it sounds like something that you might want a little bit more help on, just slide in a DM. We'll have a conversation. But yeah, love to chat.
Love it. And we'll also include a link to your website too, to make it easy for people to find you that way as well. Second thing I want to do is something that I've been doing for a couple of years now, and what you said with your very kind words reminds me of it, because you talked about how you put up all this great content on your Instagram, right? And that's what everybody who comes onto the show does. They have various ways that they're putting all this free content out there. We got all this free content being generated, and it occurred to me, we don't get credit for that. And I said, well, I can do something about that because I'm a podcast host and I talk to these people all the time. So Tywin, on behalf of those people you've never met and never seen, never will meet, never will see, who've been consuming that content you've been putting out there, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
I really appreciate that. I really do. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you guys. for having me on. Thank you guys for listening and allowing me a platform to share my story. So hopefully someone that's listening to this got a couple nuggets, either a couple nuggets or I just made you so mad you talk about me.
Which is a nugget, actually, when you come down to it. I mean, that's that different perspective thing we were talking about.
The next host is going to be like, that guy you had on last time. Let me talk about that.
And then the final thing that we do every week is I have wonderful co-hosts. You've met one of them here. And they have tremendous perspectives. We've been talking about perspectives. And they have this amazing ability to tie together what we've been talking about. Now, Anne-Marie's been thinking about it as we've been winding up here, and I know she's got her answer lined up. So, Anne-Marie, how are you tying it all together today?
Today was wonderful. So I think for me, the best advice is what you started with, is get to know yourself. And I would say, you know, write a list. Who are you? And also then, who do you want to be? And what can you do to be that person? So I think that was my nuggets from today. Just get to know yourself.
That's beautiful.
Didn't I tell you she was good?
That was good.
Yeah, really good. That's why I go to them every time. I mean, like, that's damn
Oh, we
good.
gotta have some women around. If it was just us men, I'm so grateful for women. Shout out to my wife.
Tywin, thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.